I'm going to address and talk about a very difficult and painful topic for all Ugandans. And this is corruption in Uganda. Uganda has been described now as the fraud capital of Africa, easily overtaking any other country in Africa as far as corruption is concerned. Many people, when we talk about corruption, they think of dictator Yoweri Museveni alone. But this demagogue has worked out a very clever system and used members of his family and the very close cronies around him to disguise, to steal, to cheat, and basically plunder all the resources, not only of Uganda, but of some of the neighboring countries, for example, the DRC. If we talk exhaustively about corruption in Uganda and about dictator Museveni's theft methods, we will take hours. I'll mention just some highlights. For example, what is not known is that many of the properties in Uganda are owned by either Museveni himself or his family. We'll take some hotels. Akamwesi is owned by Salim Saleh and Hope Mwesige. Aya Hotel is actually owned by Yoweri Museveni. JM Hotel is owned by Janet Museveni. Greenland Towers, owned by Janet Museveni. Roofings, owned by Janet Museveni. Samia Dairy Corporation, owned by Yoweri Museveni. Malaysian Furniture, owned by Yoweri Museveni. Nakumet Complex, owned by Yoweri Museveni. Cham Towers, owned by Yoweri Museveni. Crested Towers, owned by Yoweri Museveni. Imperial Royal Hotel, owned by Yoweri Museveni. Imperial Resort Beach Hotel, owned by Yoweri Museveni. Bidco Factory, owned by Yoweri Museveni. Umeme, which is the pain of 99% of Ugandans, with the poor electricity supply and the most exorbitant tariffs in the region, owned by Muhoozi Kainerugaba, the son of Yoweri Museveni. Uganda Telecom, owned jointly by Muhoozi and Janet Museveni. Entebbe International Airport, owned by Yoweri Museveni with some interest of Sam Kutesa. Orient Bank, Sam Kutesa. Garden City, Yoweri Museveni. Zain, Salim Saleh. Warid Telecom, Amelia Chambadde. MTN Uganda, Yoweri Museveni. The ARV's Drug Factory, Yoweri Museveni. Speak Resort Munyonyo, Yoweri Museveni. WBS Television, Yoweri Museveni. There are many, many, many others. And for most of these properties, Yoweri Museveni and his cronies did not earn these businesses, did not establish these businesses from scratch as a normal businessman would do. Either they took over in the guise of privatization, or they took over from individuals like the former Greenland Bank, stolen from the owner and proprietor, Chigundu, or using other people and using government money, pretend that these are national assets, when actually behind the doors they are owned and controlled by none other but Yoweri Museveni and his family. Many of you know that Stanbic Bank is owned or controlled in the majority by Yoweri Museveni and Janet Museveni. The Kalangala Palm Project, where thousands of people were displaced, their land taken, and poorly compensated, if at all, owned by Yoweri Museveni. Apart from those properties listed, there are hundreds and thousands of other properties, particularly shop arcades, land holdings, private residences, which are perpetually on the surface owned by Ugandans, for example, Chirumira, but in real fact are owned by Museveni, and these are just a front. The money earned, they take a percentage, and the big bulk they take back to their master, Yoweri Museveni. Needless to say, such properties and such businesses don't pay tax. And if they do, it is minimal tax. This is the current state of Uganda. One would remember the privatization process and many parastatal bodies which were the pride of the nation, which were the backbone of the economy of Uganda, were blatantly stolen by dictator Yoweri Museveni and his cronies. The proceeds from these enterprises, so-called sale of enterprises, was never known. And Uganda as a country did not benefit. In fact, now, dictator Yoweri Museveni has got the audacity to publicly say he's a rich man. Many of us who knew Museveni when he came out of the bush, we knew he didn't even have decent shoes. We knew that he did not even have a decent house in Rachitula. And during the Bush War, he did not have a penny. The money was collected by Ugandans hoping to salvage their nation, not knowing that they are jumping from the frying pan into the fire. One of the biggest backbone of fraud, theft, and corruption in Uganda is Museveni's brother, Salim Saleh. I've mentioned just a few things that he owns. But some of you may not know that this goes much, much deeper. When Museveni came into power, he devised a means of starting what was called a security company, Sarasen. Now, this is a force behind evictions, behind looting, behind theft, behind arms dealings, and behind invasions around the eastern Great Lakes region. Sarasen is known to have armed deals, illegal armed deals. Sarasen is known to be at the forefront of the looting of minerals from the DRC. And Sarasen is known to be at the forefront in now stealing and dealings with Southern Sudan. Salim Saleh owns 45% of Sarasen and Branch Energy 25%. Both of these initially were subsidiaries of a very infamous outfit called Executive Outcomes. This apparently disappeared and now is disguised under many forms, but principally under a company called Lifeguard. Fellow Ugandans, you know what is happening with the oil deals. This is a long story. You know what's happening to gold in Karamoja. This is a long story. And all these are being stolen in broad daylight, without shame, by dictator Yoweri Museveni and his cronies. Now, I've not talked about government projects yet, where the money either borrowed or donated or given to Uganda is blatantly squandered and stolen without shame. The Education Ministry is a good example, with the primary school project, Education for All. Thousands and thousands of millions of shillings. It is estimated that about 600 billion has been lost in the Ministry of Education, and a big bulk of that under the stewardship of Jim Muhwezi, who now has been brought back into cabinet. The office of the Prime Minister has been in the news for quite some time now. Estimated 50 billion Uganda shillings. The infamous Basajja Balaba has been given more than 300 billion in facilitation of one way or the other, not counting the illegal activities and evasion of taxes that he enjoys because he works for Yoweri Museveni. The NSSF saga, estimation of about 3 billion Uganda shillings. Compensation to the Harper Group, 25 billion. The CHOGM, or Commonwealth Meeting Project, over 300 billion Uganda shillings, disappeared somehow, and there was nothing much to show for it. Globe of Fund of Money, everybody knows, and the Gavi money in the Ministry of Health, both of which amount to about 620 billion Uganda shillings. The Temangalo saga, land saga, which involved the former Prime Minister Amama Mbabazi, 11 billion. NAADS, 2.7 billion. The Uganda Electricity Board, when it was dismantled and broken up into Umeme, from the beginning to now, so far has cost the Ugandan taxpayer more than 900 billion Uganda shillings, which should have rightly been used for the Ugandans. To date, ladies and gentlemen, the Identity Card project has swallowed more than 625 billion Uganda shillings. And even up to now, there is nothing much to show for it. And no one is making noise, and no one is being prosecuted. In the Ministry of Finance alone, it is estimated that in 1 year, 2012, more than 450 billion shillings was not accounted for. Now, that is 1 year only. So if you add up 400 billion every year for the last 15 years, how much more money has been stolen without accountability? The Internet Broadband Project, by now, it should have covered the whole country. But up to now, more than 250 billion Uganda shillings has been sunk and lost, and there is nothing much to show. Initially, under the stewardship of Minister Mulira, he has never been prosecuted. He has never been investigated. I can go on and on and on. There is the pension scandal. There is the railway network in East Africa and the modern port, or supposedly, at Bukassa on Lake Victoria. These supposedly took, or a lot of money was injected into this project to the tune of $8.5 United States dollars, billions, not Ugandan shillings. Of course, many of you know about the road projects. Currently, everybody is talking about the Mukono-Katos project, which so far has swallowed more than 170 billion. But there is more. More roads have been planned over the last 25 years, and nothing has been delivered. It is estimated that the amount of money that has been stolen under the guise of roads is more than 3 trillion Uganda shillings. As we speak, former Minister Nasasira is a free man, and he has not been investigated. Ladies and gentlemen, I could go on and on. I've not listed the cash money that has been stolen. I've not listed the cash money that is now kept offshore. But we have records. We have information. We have investigated dictator Yoweri Museveni, and we speak with the confidence. Unfortunately, he does not act alone, and he's got some godfathers in other countries. That's how he manages to do all his deals. But I'll concentrate myself on the Ugandans. Fellow Ugandans, this money alone, if it was realized, is enough to fund the national budget, is enough to buy enough medicine for the hospitals for the next 5 years, is enough to renovate the roads, is enough to reduce the deaths from children suffering and mothers dying during childbirth because there are no proper facilities. Now, I want to appeal to you. Many of you have lost something. Many of you have lost land. Many of you have lost property. But this is peanuts to what the whole nation at large has lost at the hands of dictator, the chief thief and robber, Yoweri Museveni and his cronies. This cannot be allowed to continue. It's gone on for long enough. And the time to stop that is now. We cannot wait any longer. So I want to appeal to you. I want you to join me if you want a better Uganda. If you want your children and grandchildren to have a better life, to join me now in booting Yoweri Museveni from power. Thank you and God bless you.